Welcome back. And thank you again for another episode of The Slide. This podcast aims to normalize important conversations that are necessary for our community, centered around themes such as education, politics, justice, and education. But as you know, before we can attempt to get into anything really controversial, we have to lay and establish a foundation. And again, it's my pleasure to have my brother back with me. Welcome back, brother. Welcome back to Nicks. It's an honor to have you here with us again today.
Oh man, it's always a pleasure to be on the slide.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You know, last time we sat in, which wasn't long ago, but it was important for me to get you back as soon as possible, because the last time that we had opportunity to sit together, you know, we kind of talked a little bit about the Black church and some of those things that what you did for us, you provided us a excellent definition of what the Black church is and how the Black church was established for our community. But as we sit and talk today, what we really want to do is understand how we can utilize these systems in our community in order to be able to improve our community. I'm a firm believer that there is no help coming for us. I don't believe that we live in an environment that is outfitted with leaders that have a desire to improve our community, if you would. And I'm talking about at the top. I'm not talking about necessarily, you know, those leaders at the local level. I'm saying we live in a nation, I don't believe, that has a desire to see our communities improve. And if we are going to improve, I believe that it's something that we're going to have to take ownership of ourselves, and we have to utilize existing systems. So we won't remain on the Black church very, very long as we grow, because there are many systems that we have at our disposal, and I know that you're a wealth of knowledge relative to these things. But let's begin there, right? How do we make effective use of the Black church in order to see our communities improve?
All right. And the reason why that question is important, last week our affirmation for Team Nitro was changing levels and changing lanes. Changing levels, changing lanes. And I was listening to the kids apply it to how they answer questions. So for example, if I don't understand a question, who can I get to help me better understand the question, so that way it increases my opportunity of getting the answer right? Not who can I ask, what does this question mean, so that they give me the answer. That's not what I want. I need someone that can help me better understand the question. So what does that look like? And one student said, I can ask my dad. I can ask my mom. I can ask my teacher. So are you asking them for the answer? No, I'm asking them to help me better understand this question. Because if we're providing answers and those answers aren't working for our community, that means we didn't properly understand the question.
Right.
So with that, I said, are you leveling down or leveling up when you go up that ladder from mom, dad, parents, teacher? And one lady said, well, one young girl said, and even God. So it's like, but we got to make sure that we are answering the question that's being asked, or we're asking the right questions. In my PhD program, one of the things that we had to do was we had to have so many questions that we were going to answer. And with these questions, you could not answer them without doing the data, the research, the sampling. And then you found out if you had the right answer based on how you formatted the question. So the questions are important. And then, because I want to give you a quick answer, but I want to make sure that I've spent so much time on that question, because even if we don't have other people to help us frame it, we may have to change lanes and break it down word by word to be able to properly understand the question that's being posed. People were like, well, you know, the Bible is written in Hebrew, so if you don't speak Hebrew fluently, you ain't going to understand the Bible. They're going to say, well, the New Testament was written in Greek, so if you don't speak Greek fluently, you're not going to be able to understand the Bible. So I'm saying all that to say this. If thou shalt not kill is a thing that you can understand and you still ain't doing it, if you know Hebrew and Greek and Arabic and Mandarin Chinese, it don't matter.
Right.
Because something is still not right within to help you apply what you do know. So two things when you look at the Black church and how can it help improve, what you're looking at is, number one, what is the stuff that we can do now that we ain't doing? And then at the same time, are we asking the right questions, and have we really properly unpacked it? and data equals dollars. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed is that people have spent more money on predictive behavior research pertaining to the Black community, that they have not shared that information with the people to help them better themselves. So that's the short answer.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate that. And as you were sharing, it took me back to a time I was having a conversation with my mother one day, and I was driving. Actually, I was driving from Killeen, Texas, to Dallas. This was during my time period of being in the military, and we were talking about leadership. And it was around the time of the birth of Dr. Martin Luther King, and my mother said, Martin Luther King is the greatest leader that Black people have ever experienced. And as she was saying that, I told myself, I said, Ma, in good conscience, I can't allow you to say that when we have alive and with us today, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I just can't let you say that. We have a lot of great leaders, right? We can't assign the greatest leader value to Martin Luther King when we see people that are doing great works, right? And so as we talked a little bit more, and my response, or the context of the statement that I'm attempting to make is we can't continue to allow people to tell us how to use our institutions, right? And so I asked my mother, I said, Ma, you believe in Jesus? Now, mind you, as I'm having this conversation, I'm probably 42 years old. I'm 50 now, so this may have been about 8 years ago. I said, Ma, you believe in Jesus? Now, mind you, this lady raised me, right? So I'm very, very familiar with her belief system. She said, yeah, I believe in Jesus. I said, who taught you that? And she said, my mama and my daddy taught me. Now, I happen to know that my grandfather murdered my grandmother. So at that point, anything that she said that came from that system, I could have rejected it because of the trauma that it brought to our family. Any information that came from that system, I could kind of write it off because those values didn't impress upon the mind of my grandfather understanding of how to manage his family in order to keep that family safe. But I ain't challenged my mama like that. I got too much respect for that. I said, oh, okay. I said, and who taught them? She said, they mama and daddy. Fine by me. I said, and who taught them? She said, I get it. At some point, I'm going to have to say, Charlie taught them. I said, you're going to have to. We were enslaved in this nation. At some point, you're going to have to accept the fact that everything that we understand came to us through an oppressor. It just is what it is. And I'm not demonizing the system that God allowed us to be subject to. I'm saying this, you have to acknowledge it. And so I asked my mother, I said, Ma, would you give your purse to a thief? No. I know how my mama feel about money. She said, no, I wouldn't give my purse to a thief. I said, Ma, would you let a murderer hold your gun? No. Why would I do that? I said, would you let a pedophile sleep in the same bed with your granddaughters? He said, what type of question are these? I said, well, why would you take your system of understanding from somebody who has beat you, murdered you, raped you, and robbed you of everything that you had? See, we can't continue to allow people to give us an understanding of how we use those systems that will pave the way for our prosperity and for our future, because we have seen up to this point that those individuals don't have a vested interest in our community. And I'm just saying what it is. I've served 21 years in the military. I think I've earned the right to share my point of view, right? And so, and because I made sacrifices for this nation with an understanding of what the nation did or inflicted upon us, because I believe that it is our mission in order to make it better. So how now do we take all of those experiences that we had up to this point and create a solution that will be mutually beneficial for individuals who both have been impacted by the difficulties of this nation? How do we move forward? And how do we use those systems that are currently in place in order to improve our communities?
All right. So thank you for sharing that backdrop about mom and your contextualization of how we can move forward. And I would have to agree with your statement. And then I would also have to say that there was a re-indoctrination. I'm not going to say that every person that was in African diaspora pertaining to those who were prisoners of war, who were sold to the Dutch, the English, etc., for slavery, I'm not going to say all of those people did not know the Bible at that time. I'm going to say that due to lack of literacy, the lack of being able to congregate, the lack of the ability with the right to assemble.
Right.
There are certain things that were reintroduced to us over a 400-year time frame that was not with the initial system. for someone that typically ministers in the Black community, that when folks come to me and challenge me on my belief system pertaining to an oppressor's religion, I don't go to the NIV, ESV, ABC. I always work with the King James Version of the Bible, because people say, well, how can you teach that book when this is what they use to enslave our people? I said, well, what do you mean? They said, well, you know, King James was gay. I said, well, if King James was gay, he's the first king with the authorized book that put his own self in the lake of fire. Well, you know, Psalm such and such, it just says Shakespeare. And I said, well, through my due diligence and research, that Psalm is really just the Hebrew alphabet. So there are certain things. And then I said, well, what about slaves obey your masters unto the Lord? I said, well, what Jesus said was in Matthew, I think 3:17, it says, and the Spirit of God fell down like a dove, and he heard a voice from heaven saying, this is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased. So with that being said, I don't see servant or slave. I see a child of God. So therefore, the same rights and privileges that came through Jesus' blood, that's the same rights and privilege for all those who believe in him as Lord and Savior. The problem is that when they didn't teach our people the proper application of the word. And I do believe that proper application of the word will also lead to fulfilling an identity crisis and a thirsting of being a child of God versus being a goblin, or whatever the term is in these particular times, as far as atrocious behaviors. And I do believe that once an individual has an identity that has been fulfilled, and I teach identity from a humanity perspective, from a divine perspective, because I believe that God made us in his image and likeness, but also from a royal perspective, which is something that we have been denied, because we believe that everybody came from Africa was a king or queen. And I do believe that there is royal bloodhood, and with royalty, you can extend such things, but the behavior and conduct in class should also match. And for some reason, we have the human, we have a divine ideology, but we're missing royal conduct. And I don't believe that we carry ourselves in a manner as such. And what happens is that we typically demote ourselves based on our identity, or the models that have been presented before us that have failed to match, because the Apostle Paul also said, follow me as I follow Christ. Meaning that if for any reason that you don't see Christ-like conduct, you don't have to keep following me anymore. He put in a mathematical problem. The mathematical equation is if then, which is a biconditional statement. The condition is that my behavior must model that of Christ. And if my behavior does not match that of Christ, you are no longer responsible to have to follow me. So, which also leads to separating those of us who have fell into cultism or cult-like practices, meaning that they look at a leader or an individual as the supreme being. And that's not what the Bible requires. And once again, there's only one person that was able to live a life that deemed worthy of having redemptive value. Not saying that people didn't die honorably, but there's only one person that died with the authority of redemptive value. And with that redemptive value, we say by his stripes we're healed and or redeemed. So I took the long end just to kind of bring in some context in there, because my thing is I sat down with a Hebrew Israelite brother, and we sat down and we started talking about scriptures, this, that, and other. And I said, you know what? If there is nothing that you have based on your religion that's going to help us reduce the murder rate of black men killing black men, I don't know if this is strong enough for me. Because if this can't help me come to a solution to help us solve a problem that we have in our community, then it's not applicable. So I don't believe that if the black church is going to be the black church, I don't believe that every black community is dealing with the same thing. But in the city of Jacksonville, there are some overarching issues that have to be addressed. And the church is the institution that preserves the authority and the influence and the negotiation power to be able to streamline resources to get them right back into the people that need them. And all resources are not necessarily money, but they are of monetary value. So I want to make sure I'm saying this clear. All resources aren't just money, but it is of monetary value, such as land, such as housing, such as preventative health, such as quality education, which are things that the black church was known for, which was the reason. That's the only thing that the black church had to do, was to be that conduit to make sure that those resources were galvanized and distributed properly. But it's kind of turned into a place of entertainment, physical exercise, and literacy and gymnastics. It's not necessarily the empowerment vehicle that it was birthed to be. And the black church was birthed out of trauma. And I believe that there is a healing balm. It can also be found within the black church, but I don't know how many folks are willing to do that due diligence to bring the leadership to help transform the lives, to have a body of work that our ancestors can be proud of, our elders can be proud of, and or the cloud of witnesses that are already in heaven can also be proud of.
Yeah. You know, and I appreciate your response. I don't talk religion with many men. I don't really share my perspective or my views relative to religion with many people, because it's such a intense conversation. It's such an intense topic. And I just really don't have time to sit around arguing with a joker not taking purposeful action because we disagree on divinity. When I had a very, very unique experience with one of the sons of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a gentleman named Rasul Hakeem Muhammad. And he used to tell this story. He said, it's three people on the bus. One of them was a Jew, one of them was a Christian, one of them was a Muslim. He said they all were on the bus together. He said, and the Muslim man stood up and said, Ashhadu an la ilaha Muhammad and Rasulullah, Muhammad is the messenger of God. And he said, the Jewish man said, sit down, you idiot. Our Messiah soon return. He said, the Christian man said, Jesus Christ, have mercy on them all. Have mercy on all of these ignorant people on this bus. He said, but they were all on the bus together, headed in the same direction. Right. And so when we realize that we all populate this planet together and that there is one God, right, one God that's looking out for all of us and being patient with us to try to allow us the opportunity to figure out how to work together. Right. I think we should take advantage of that opportunity and not sit around and be divided based on our minuscule understanding of the wisdom of God. That's just my perspective on it. I wish to see men work together regardless of race, ethnicity, nationality, because those things are some of the most trivial and petty things in existence when we got so many real problems that we face every single day. You know, but at times in this nation, and I'm just ranting really, right? But because at times in this nation, we sit around and we try to take the moral high ground and we try to act like we got this amazing divinity and that we're better than other individuals because we have figured out, you know, how not to commit a certain type of sin, right? Not that we're not doing everything in our power. I got an uncle, and may God be pleased with Charles G. Bethel. They named the school after that boy in Miami. But he said, if you are in a position of authority and you have the ability to help an individual and you don't, that's sin, right? So you know, it's a lot of people with a lot of different understandings of what is required in the time that we're in. I just think that we're in a time so critical as we watch, you know, our sons and daughters leave at such an early age. Yesterday in the city of Jacksonville, the whole city came alive to celebrate the birth of a young man who really shouldn't be gone so soon. But the traumas that we carrying and the pain that we carrying sometimes lead us into decisions where we even claim our own lives, right? So our community is in need of something. I believe that thing that is needed in our community can be found in the black church. And when I say the black church, I am not omitting the mosque. And if you have a Jewish faith, I am not omitting the synagogue. Anywhere where divinity is celebrated, we should honor those places, and we should try to figure out how to navigate ourselves back to those places to equip ourselves with the resources, the internal resources that we need in order to succeed. We're in a fight. I believe we're in a war. And I ain't talking about the Iranian conflict. The war that we're taking place is an individual war. We're all in the individual war trying to fight for our souls in order to be able to be better individuals. And you know, y'all, I will reserve whether or not I believe we're winning or losing in this fight. I just think it's more that need to be done, right? Where can we start, right? In your opinion, if you had to give some advice to individuals, say, man, listen, you know, you can take these steps. What guidance would you give to an individual as they seek to begin the journey to improve their condition and the condition of their community?
I'm from the philosophy that beliefs and behaviors are who you become. So like your belief system is going to be powerful, but your behavior is also going to be just as powerful. And then with that, you have what you call institutional knowledge. Institutional knowledge is something that was once oral, passed down orally then it became written, and then you have libraries and institutions. I do believe local libraries are underutilized. I do believe that my private library I'm working to get my private library just as big as my public library. And then what I typically tell our youth when I work with our program, we're in March. So if you're in 5th grade, ask a rhetorical question. What grade are you in? You would say
5th.
Right. And I say, you know what? You are right. The thing is that now that we're on this half of the year, you should be thinking like a 6th grader. And thinking, how am I making the necessary steps for promotion? And I think that a lot of us, even at 18, we peaked at 18. Amos Wilson and Neely Fuller. Amos Wilson would typically say that specifically with the Black community, we take pride in saying that, oh man, I got time to read no book. I ain't got time to read no book. I got time to read no book. And I was reading a passage from a book that I was reading for church planning that I'm doing now. And this is the illustration the guy gave. He said that if there was a horrible disease that was killing people, and you had this medical doctor who had been working on patients, and he's still in school, but he did not make time to study because he was so busy working with patients. He says, instead of calling him a medical student, we'll just call him a kind murderer. If we have a disease and all we're trying to do is treat patients and we're not making no sacrifice to do research, we're just a kind murderer. Because how in the world are we going to address the issue if we keep trying to treat folks and we haven't done enough due diligence to find out how to cure them? So there is a healthy combination, and the term is tandem, meaning that they have to work hand in hand. And if you don't have time for research, you need to make time to sit down at a dinner table to where you can sit down with someone who has. And that's the difference between a neurologist and a neurosurgeon. And for some reason, with the Black church, there hasn't been a tandem of working with the pastor pertaining to speaking and the pastor pertaining to the flock, or the elder within the church and the elder within the community, or the elder within the political office and the elder that's actually doing the needs assessments. There has to be tandem traction. They have to work together. So, and then typically, whenever you go to a doctor for the first time, whether it's mental health or physical health, what do they ask you? Tell me about your family history.
Come on.
And if grandma had high cholesterol, grandpa had high cholesterol, then more than likely the fruit of her womb is going to have high cholesterol, unless somebody has addressed this issue. And if we keep dealing with generations where we haven't done enough history, and then I want to say this the last time you interviewed me, you know our ancestors didn't get birth certificates. So to say that we knew Frederick Douglass' birthday is an assumption. To say we knew Harriet Tubman's birthday is an assumption. To say we know Big Mama's birthday is an assumption. The Big Daddy birthday is an assumption. But you want to know something that was an assumption? The birth certificate for the Black community, 9 times out of 10, you want to know where they put it at?
In the Bible.
That was, all right, he was born this day, this time, right here in the house.
That's right. I've seen that because I've seen Grandma Bible. I've seen it.
It's a living, running document to show you and unfortunately, like I said, I'm not saying digital and technological advances. What difference does it make to have all these technological advances if we still can't walk in harmony? Which is something that you were talking about pertaining to being able to work with people of other faith. And I'm going to go away from Bible, then I can come back later on. And away from Bible, I think Shakespeare said it like this: to thy own self be true. And if you have a problem with who you are, you're going to have a problem with everybody. And then I think there's a high level of authenticity that I love pertaining to martial arts, because like you can see a ninja wearing something over their face, right? But you come on that mat and you roll around, you ain't going to be able to wear a mask long. That's figurative and literal. You can't wear a mask on the mat. And the reason why our communities can't get better is because we always got a mask on. The mask has to come off. Yeah. And I think the little bit of success that God has allowed me to have in whatever capacity I've had success is because I refuse to put a mask on.
And I appreciate that about you.
This is where I stand. This is where I come from. All that my mama was and she wasn't, she was and she wasn't. I still love her. And I still miss her every day. All that my biological father was and he wasn't, I still love him. And I'm commanded by God to honor him even in his absence. We got to come out of this fantasy and actually get in. I think we don't have enough. I think dinner tables are something that are also underutilized. In addition to the library, the dinner table is also underutilized. Because if we're going to go by the book, Jesus said, go to house. And in some words, they'll say, shalom. Bring peace to this home. And if they don't receive you, get the dust off your feet and keep moving. I just came by to break bread with you for a little bit to see how you're doing. To check on my neighbor, to check on my brother. He didn't say your neighbor had to be Jewish. He didn't say that your neighbor had to be Muslim. He didn't say that your neighbor had to be anything. He says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I just came to check on you.
That's right.
And in some people, you would call that witnessing, evangelism, but that should be a normal practice and custom. Because with that assessment, a friend of mine called me and said that someone had committed suicide in their community. And to the outside looking in, you say, man, that person was super successful. But from the inside looking out, they're trying to figure out, why should I still be here? From the inside looking out, they're trying to figure out, why should I be here? And I feel like we get so self-inundated, and I got to take inventory on myself as well, that I don't make myself available enough for humanity to make sure our brothers and sisters, just a regular check-in. I thought about you. You were on my mind. I try to make it a note that on Facebook that anybody whose birthday pops up, I can at least acknowledge that they're here. They did exist. This is the day that they came in, or this is the day that they at least put down for their birthday. So I just want them to know, hey, somebody noticed you.
That's right.
Somebody acknowledged you. You're seen, valued, and appreciated and loved.
Man, and you better than me, because I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't make myself that available. Right? I don't make myself that available. Could I make myself more available? For what? For you to waste my time? No. Hey, like, share, subscribe, follow the slide. We making these sacrifices to put the information out because we're at a juncture in history where it's time for certain things to occur on the planet. And so it's our responsibility to develop the will, the morals, the education, and the intellect in order to be able to advance our society.
So with the slide, maybe we could talk to Jason, the producer, to see if he could put up a survey to say, what are the issues that you would like for us to address?
That's right.
Because with that survey and with that data, it gives us a basis.
Yeah.
So in 2022, I conducted a survey. Like, people were like, man, how do you get in all these schools? I knock on the door. I want to be. A matter of fact, I think you might have asked me, like, how do you get this access? And I'm like, I just keep showing up.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that principals tell me is that when they reach out to professional athletes and actors and actresses or business owners, they only want to come once. They say what they appreciate about me is that at least the children know that you're going to come back.
Yeah. You're consistent.
That's it. It's not a mystery. It's just keep showing up.
Yeah, and
you'd be surprised what kind of access you get if you keep showing up.
And for me, the way that you invest that time, that is priceless, and that's why your time shouldn't be wasted, and that's why you should all like, share, and subscribe to the Dr. Nahshon Nicks show, so you can get the tidbits of guidance and the wisdom that allow you to take purposeful action. But don't be calling this man and sliding in his DM, asking him about some stuff where you already done decided and made up your mind you're gonna do. Because a lot of times that's what the Joker want to do. We leech people energy. We want to waste time. We want to be able to share that gloom. I'm gonna allow you to sit in your own crap, because in order to come out of that situation, sometimes we got to be able to sit and stew for a little bit and then get frustrated enough. I want to say it was Esau and Jacob. When Esau went to his father and asked for a blessing, he said, you will serve your brother. And it is not until you become frustrated that you'll break that yoke that exists around your neck. It's time for that yoke to come off our necks. It's time for us now to take more action in our community in order to be able to arrive at the result that'll give our children and our future generations the opportunities to prosper. It ain't time to sit around using terms like them and they. Black people, stop doing this to describe color. It's black and it's white. You don't have to be afraid in a room full of Caucasians to say white or black, right? It's time now where we can engage in discussions and dialogues that will lead to purposeful action. But if you're too afraid to even acknowledge the fact that we're black or that that person is white or that some egregious crimes took place in this nation, how are we going to fix it? Stop being afraid. It's time for us to stop that. So as we end in this particular segment, which with many more to come, right? If you could, give a piece of departing guidance so we can begin that process of invigorating our organizations and our communities, so we can begin that process of restoring and healing our communities.
But I teach our students, and whenever people invite me to speak, this is one of the affirmations that I put out. Sobriety sustains success. But you got to be sober first, which means you cannot have any fantasy or intoxication to be able to see the task at hand. And sobriety sustains success. And we're not looking for temporary one-hit wonders or overnight. If we want to be sustained, we have to be sober and vigilant. Because we do have an adversary, and he ain't black or white.
That's right.
But he's seeking whomever he
may devour.
Whoever. But if we're not sober and vigilant, and we don't have no watchmen, no watchwomen on the wall in our neighborhoods, communities, and families, then the Apostle Paul talks about love and all this other type of stuff. You can't say that you love me and you don't even want to get to know me. And going back into what you're saying about acknowledgement and authenticity, I get more support from people who don't look like me, who are white, when I'm able to properly address the issue. And I'm not ashamed of being a black man addressing the issues and asking for help with this issue.
That's right.
Because if we dance around the problem will never be solved.
That's facts.
All we're doing is we're treating a condition, we're treating the symptom, but not acknowledging the condition.
That's right.
And so, like I said, I do believe it's going to take a very high level of vigilance, sobriety, and with the data that we're able to properly communicate, our communities will be transformed. And I'm going to say it again, for our country, for America to reach its full potential, if you help Black America, you're helping all of America. Mm-hmm. Because there's nothing that you can do to help us that ain't going to benefit everybody.
That's right.
So that would be my closing thought.
Thank you so much. And we got to do this again. Listen, it's going to be a long 2026, and you don't want to miss these episodes because I'm telling you right now, Dr. Nahshon Nicks is dropping jewels. And so come on and spend some time with us. All right. Everybody know, right? When it comes to the slide, it's a couple of things you can do. You can choose. You make your choice. Ain't nobody trying to influence you to do whatever it is that you think that you don't want to do. It's some things that are required. And if you start to participate in those processes, you'll find immense joy. Resources, it's time for resources, right? It's time for us now to enter into those dialogues that will bring the resources to our community that we need in order to prosper. We watching a joker spend hundreds of millions of dollars per day, billions of dollars per day in a war effort that will soon creep towards trillions of dollars per day. And it ain't going to take a month. It's going to take about 10 years in order to come out of the condition that was just established. So during that time frame, it is essential for us to be active, figuring out what we need to do in order to improve our communities. Y'all, we are at the precipice of change. And as I close, I look forward to spending some more time with you. Come on down and spend some time and kick it with us and vibe with the slide, because you know you can run and you can glide, but you cannot hide when you're dealing with the slide. Thank you very much. We see you soon.